Welcome back to Spelling and Word Study. My name is Mrs. Rhoades, and I'm here to get you started on Unit 27, the long U sound with UE and EW. Please take a second to gather your materials. You will need your red book open to page 167. You'll also need some colorful pens, markers, or crayons. Remember, whatever I mark on my board, you should be marking on your page. Please save room for a key as well. All right, so we are almost done with our discussion of long vowels. We talked about long A, E, I, and O. Last week we started talking about long U. Remember, long U can say oo or you. Last week, all of our words contained an O-O. When you put the O and O together, they often make an oo sound in words like food or moon. Well, today we're going to talk about two more vowel combinations that also make that oo or U sound. We're going to talk about UE and EW. Let's start by reading our list. As we do, use your ears to listen for that oo or U sound and use your eyes to find a UE or an EW in each word. Here we go. Blue, chew, clue, do, few, flew, glue, new, stew. Did you hear that oo sound over and over? Great. So let's choose a color and let's go through and look for that UE pattern. Here it is at the end of blue. So let's put a box around that. We see it again at the end of clue, at the end of do, at the end of glue. Okay? Notice that UE pattern only shows up at the end of a word. Last week, the OO pattern usually showed up in the middle. Food, moon, boot. It can show up at the end in words like boo or to, but most of the time OO sticks to the middle of a word. If we want to make an oo sound at the end of a word, UE is a common option. So over here, green box equals UE, and those two letters are going to come together to make one sound. They're going to say oo. All right, let's choose a second color, and this time let's look for words that end with EW. We see it at the end of chew and do. By the way, notice these two words are pronounced exactly the same. D-oo, do. D-oo, do. We see it at the end of few. Now listen to this. F-you. Do you notice what's happening here? That long U sound, instead of saying oo, is saying you, okay? You've seen that before in words like cute and cube. Now it's showing up here. EW in flew, EW in new, and EW in stew. So here's another good pattern to know. Notice that EW hangs out in the same place as UE. They both like to show up at the end of a word. So EW also makes a long U sound. Okay? So because they both show up at the end of a word and because they both make the same exact sound, you're really going to have to use your eyes to see what looks right when you're spelling and when you're reading. The more reading you do, the easier it will be to notice the correct spelling. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is homophones. Remember that? Homophones are two or more words that sound the same, but they're spelled differently and have different meanings. So we have a bunch of homophones this week. This word right here is the color blue, right? But there's another kind of blue that's spelled like this with the EW pattern. And this kind of blue means the past tense of blow, like the wind blew really hard last night. So blue and blue are homophones. Do is a homophone for do. See how they sound exactly the same? This kind of dew is a wet droplet that you find on the grass. So in the summertime, if you wake up really early, sometimes the grass feels wet, even though it didn't rain. That's because moisture from the air, water from the air, turned into little droplets on the grass. And those little droplets of water are called dew. Now, this kind of dew means you need to have it now, like your library book is due now. Your payment for the field trip is due now. So this is a describing word, and if something is due, it means it must happen now. It is due. Like it hasn't rained in 2 weeks. We are due for some rain. It seems like it must happen now. So this is due, but of course you already know about this kind of do, D-O, like I have to do my homework. Okay, flew is a homophone. This kind of flew is the past tense of fly. Now I fly on a plane. When I was little, I flew on a plane. But there's also this kind of flu. When somebody gets sick, when they run a fever and they have a stuffy nose, a sore throat, they might have the flu. And then new is another homophone. This kind of new means not old. Like I bought some new sneakers, or we have a new student in our class. But there's also another kind of new, spelled like this, which means I knew the answer. All right, so probably one of the trickiest things you're going to have to do this week, as you're learning about the spelling of each word and the way to say it, its pronunciation, you have to think about its meaning, because there are going to be several homophones. And when you get to page 170, you're going to get more practice with homophones. Some of these, plus words like to, and to, do, and do. I think that's it. Those are the only ones you're going to practice. Do, and do, to, and to. So let me just review the kinds of to with you quickly. This kind of to means we walk to school, or I will give it to you. This kind of to represents the number 2. And this kind of to can mean I like pizza too. So it can mean also, but it can also mean too much, like I am too full to eat another slice. Okay, so when you get to 171, you will be practicing with these homophones and these homophones. Let's go back here, though. I didn't forget that blue horizontal line represents homophones. And we're going to have a bunch of them to practice this week. Okay, the last thing I want to do is I want to go through the list and make sure we know what all of our words mean. So let me erase some of this extra stuff. Let's choose another color. And let's go through the list, and as we do, we'll talk about parts of speech. Okay, so we know that blue is a color. So it can be a noun. If I say, I like the color blue. but it can also be used as an adjective if we're using it to describe something, like I wore my blue socks or my blue coat. Chew is a verb, right? That's when you move your teeth up and down, you chew your food. Clue is a noun. A clue is a hint, right? Like I'm not going to tell you what I got you for your birthday, but I'll give you a clue. We talked about do, that's a noun. This kind of do is an adjective. It describes something. Few is also an adjective. Few means not a lot. So I only have a few dollars left. I only have a few baseball cards left. Flew is a verb. That's the past tense of fly. Glue is a noun if you're talking about a bottle of glue. If you're talking about the action, the act of gluing something, then it's being used as a verb. Okay? On 170, you're going to practice putting other endings on the word glue. So I want you to notice something weird that happens. When I change glue to glues, that's not a big deal. I just add S. But when I change glue to gluing, like I am gluing my paper, for some strange reason, we get rid of that E. I know we're used to dropping the silent E, but that's not the case here. So I don't know why we do it, but we do. So we drop the E and then we add ing. So just notice that, okay? New is a describing word. It's an adjective. And stew, that's like a thick soup, like a beef stew. You maybe simmer it in a pot on the stovetop. So that is a noun, although you can also use it as a verb. You might stew some meat or you stew some vegetables. It just means you cook them together in a pot. Okay? I think that's all I have for you. So, good luck, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.